Hello everybody, my name's Joel Chidley from Bangor University. This is a mountain bike instructional video split into two sections. Part 1 is aimed towards intermediate level mountain bike riders and gives an introduction covering the fundamentals of pumping. Part 2 is aimed towards more advanced riders, where we take pumping and apply it to some more advanced but commonly used skills such as manualing and jumping. Before attempting any of the skills demonstrated in this video, please make sure you're wearing sufficient protective gear. Although the image displays the recommended gear, I choose not to wear elbow protectors. The important thing is to be comfortable.
As a simple definition of pumping, it's the generation of speed through the use of pressure control, typically used when you're unable to pedal. Rollers may be too close together, or if you're mountain biking, roots and rocks and any other obstacle may be too close to allow you to pedal in between to generate your speed. Pressure control is the extent to which you absorb or resist the forces induced by the terrain, and it makes up an essential element of overall riding dynamics. A way of practicing your absorption skills is to, as you ride over a set of rollers, to try and maintain a level body position. So as you can see there, my body maintains quite a level position, but my bike fills the gap in between.
This is done by a combination of upper body and lower body movements, as shown here.
Although absorbing is essential for pumping, the way you actually generate speed is by either resisting or applying forces. The point in which you apply those forces is when you go on the downward transition of a roller. So if I was travelling in this direction, as I reach the top, I would push down with my bike, which creates the forward momentum. But just because the force is applied on the downward transition, it doesn't make the upward transition any less important. This is the point where you get your body in the right position to maximise the possible production of speed on the other side.
The key is to stay low on the way in by absorbing, then high on the way out by applying downward forces. This action is produced by a combination of upper body and lower body movements. Let's take a look at these two elements in isolation. Firstly, the upper body. And now the lower body. Let's combine those two forces to see how it affects the amount of speed that's generated.
As just demonstrated, the most effective way to generate speed is a combination of pushing down with the front wheel and the rear wheel.
The key is to get the timing right. Push the front wheel down as it passes over the top of the roller, then push the back wheel down as it passes over the same point. Hopefully, with a bit of practice, you'll be able to time those movements correctly and you'll be pumping away in no time. That's the end of section 1. We covered absorption and the application of forces from the upper and lower body to generate speed, which is of course pumping. Section 2 is all about how to apply pumping to other mountain bike skills, aimed towards the more experienced riders out there that already know how to do such skills as manuals and jumps, but wish to better understand the application of pumping to maximise speed and get the most out of their riding.
As speed increases, it becomes more and more difficult to keep the front wheel on the ground. This is when you have to do what's called a manual. From this position, the front wheel is raised off the ground, but you can still apply forces to the rear wheel to provide that forward momentum. So let's see what it looks like. So the way that manualing differs from pumping with both wheels in contact with the ground is that instead of pushing down with the front of the bike and then the rear of the bike, it's turned into one movement, a whole body movement, putting all of the forces through the rear wheel.
Let's take a look at a manual, focusing on the rear of the bike and the force applied by the lower body.
As I mentioned earlier, the most effective way to generate speed is a combination of the front and the back. So by doing a manual, you take away the pump and forces generated by the front wheel. One way of avoiding this when you're approaching rollers is that you can do a pre-manual, which means manually into the takeoff of the ramp so that you can utilise both of the downward transitions with both wheels. I'll show you what it looks like. So as you can see there, as I approached the takeoff of the jump, I had my arms straight and extended, my weight slightly back, and I just extended my legs, pushing the rear wheel down to lift the front up. So as you practice, you're going to become more and more efficient at pumping and manually, and start to generate more and more speed, and it's going to get increasingly difficult to keep either wheel on the ground. This is when you have to think about jumping. Jumping and pumping have a lot of similarities. You still absorb the takeoff to a certain point, and when you land, you still apply downward forces to generate more speed.
Taking a look at some snapshots here, notice that as you approach the top of the landing, you are in a low position, which is the same as when you had both wheels on the ground. Remember that idea? Low in and high out? So as your front wheels move down the downward transition, you push down with the front of the bike. Then as your rear wheel passes through the same point, you push down with the back of the bike, which overall increases the forward momentum.
Now that we've covered the fundamentals of going in a straight line, it's time to look at turning. In ways they're very similar to rollers. They have an entrance, a middle section and an exit, through which you can apply pressure to maintain or generate speed. In this next shot, take a look at what my legs do as I go round the corner. As you can see from that last clip, as I went round the corner, I was pushing down. This increased the forces which helped me carry my momentum through the corner and out the other side. I'm going to show that first clip again now, but instead of looking at the riding position or the legs at all, just listen to the sound of the tyres. As I get to that apex of the corner, I'm applying a force and you can hear the sound of the tyres. So once you've practiced all of those skills separately, it's time to put it all together into one run and have some fun.
And that's the end of section 2. Just a quick recap for you. In section 1 we looked at how to absorb the pressures induced by the terrain, as well as how and when to apply downward forces to generate speed. Then, in section 2 we applied the principles of pumping to manuals, pre-manuals, jumps and turns.
In summary, pumping is just pressure control. So if you can apply a downward force to the front and the rear of the bike at the right time, you can effectively, and with practice quite efficiently, produce forward momentum.
Just remember to keep the wheels spinning and the beaver grinning. Thanks for watching.